Hello, everyone. Today is the 5th of March, 2025. It's a Wednesday here on the East Coast, raining like a cow pissing on a flat rock, as a colleague of mine from a long time ago told me once. So yeah, it's quite a rainstorm out there, and it's really windy. But anyway, that's not why I'm here. There are a few things that have been developing since that disaster last Friday in the Oval Office. Um, for instance, the halt of cyber operations against Russia. And if you see me glancing to the side, it's because I've got my notes in a window and I'm just referring to my notes. I'd been meaning to record this yesterday, but a few things came up and I had to push it to today. But I just got home from the office and I thought, let me just sit down and record this. So anyway, yeah, the Oval Office catastrophe embarrassment of last Friday created a lot of problems, certainly regarding our relationship with our allies, our European allies, our NATO allies. But since then, Trump has decided to halt any offensive cyber operations against Russia. And that, as someone who's been working in IT for a while now, is something that deeply concerns me. We have cyber operations against Russia for a reason, as we do against China, as we do against many other nations, particularly our foes, if you will, um, Iran, North Korea. And to halt these operations is deeply disturbing. You don't do it for any reason. We don't halt these operations because they're so critical, because we depend so much on our web infrastructure for, as you can imagine, a multitude of reasons, not just defensively, but economically. And they are certainly not going to halt their operations against us while we halt ours against theirs. And then, of course, there are the tariffs that were implemented, 25% tariffs that were implemented against Canada, Mexico, and China, our three most important trading partners, particularly our neighbors, Canada and Mexico. That's just punitive, doesn't make any economic sense, but Trump thinks it's the right thing to do. And of course, the sycophants in Congress. I'm sure if you watch the address to Congress that Trump made last night, his little cheerleaders just went all nuts and fell over themselves cheering him. It was disgusting. But anyway, here's some reasons for concern. Okay, so Putin seeks to, number one, he wants to destroy Ukraine and he wants to install a pro Russia government in Ukraine. Okay, that is one reason why it's not a good idea to hurt Ukraine's chances of winning in any way, shape, or form because they are a bulwark against autocracy and against Russia, and they are a bulwark in favor of democracy. So that is a major concern right there. Another one is because the values that we share with our NATO allies, we share certain values with them. For instance, the belief in democracy, the belief in individual liberty, individual freedoms that we cherish here in the United States, our belief in human rights. We share all of these values with our allies all around the world, and especially in Europe, in NATO. And one that is very important, of course, is our belief in the rule of law. Our belief, our strong, staunch belief in the rule of law is why so many companies, so many countries like to invest here in the United States, is because They don't have to worry about paying off anyone by way of bribery in order to do business here. So they like doing business here. They like investing their money here. We have a strong economy, strong stock market. We have the rule of law. So Trump is actively hurting all of those things, all of those things. And you have to ask yourself why. And is not to make the United States a stronger country. Russia and China, Iran, North Korea, they don't share the values that we do with our allies because they're authoritarian states. They don't believe in what we believe. And in fact, those values that we espouse and that we adhere to, they're a threat to authoritarian regimes all around the world, particularly Russia and China. So think about that. They don't want their power to be challenged internally, which is why they fight against us, why they view us as a threat, why they view a liberal democracy, liberal with a small l, free democracy, as a threat to their regimes. So they don't like what we stand for. They have no checks and balances like we do. We have checks and balances, and even though Trump is trying to damage and is damaging those checks and balances, he is compromising them. Fortunately, they are standing strong, and I say that cautiously because when you have Elon and his little Doge neophytes, sycophants, whatever you want to call them, working for him in our nation's infrastructure, it's going to do more damage. But they see democracy, as I said, the autocracies around see democracy and its values as the biggest threat to their existence. So these are all reasons why we should definitely be concerned with what they're trying to do. Also, the tariffs, the 25% tariffs that are being that have been implemented against China, Mexico, and Canada, they will damage our economy by pushing us, our economy and our nation, further down that road to economic ruin. Okay, tariffs are a tax. Sometimes threatening a tariff can be a good thing, but if you implement tariffs, you have to be really careful. You've got to go about it as if you're a surgeon with a scalpel, and not some gorilla with a machete, which is what Trump is doing. It can create a lot of damage, not just for allies, but as well as for our economy. So, why is the NATO alliance so important? It's a defensive alliance against Russia. Okay, it is not an offensive alliance. You know, Russia has viewed NATO as a threat. NATO is not a threat. NATO is a bulwark, and I've used that word before. It's a powerful tool, very powerful tool against the threat that Russia poses against Eastern Europe and Western Europe. They are really afraid right now because we are not honoring our our values and our commitments that we had traditionally honored for the past, oh my gosh, how many years has it been? 75, 76 years that NATO has been in existence since 1949. And it must be shocking. It is shocking to them. It's shocking to me as a veteran, as someone who's a student of history. Shocking to me that we have a president in the Oval Office who is clearly, you may disagree with this, but who is clearly a Russian asset. This man is a Manchurian candidate. I've said it before and I'll say it again. When you connect the dots, you look at all the evidence. If you come to any other conclusion, then you're naive. So what he's doing is damaging NATO and damaging the defense of Europe. NATO has grown steadily since the end of World War II. And particularly, what's interesting is particularly during the 90s and the early 2000s because Russia started rattling their sabers, threatening some of the Eastern European neighbors of theirs, and so many Europeans went ahead and joined NATO who hadn't been um, members of NATO before. So NATO has grown because of Russian threats and not to provoke Russia. Also, a few other things, and I'll have to open my window here so I can see all the other things that I wrote here. Um, yeah, without NATO, without Russia, I'm sorry, without the US, NATO is much weaker. I don't know what's going to be, what NATO is going to be like if it's just Europe. Europe can certainly marshal a considerable military to defend it, but it's something that's going to happen rather fast. It takes time to coordinate all of this, and it's something that they're just going to have to jump through hoops to do. But there is no peace plan. You may have heard of a peace plan. There is no peace plan regarding Russia and Ukraine. There will never be a peace plan. Okay, the war is going to end when Russia decides that it or believes it can no longer win. Okay, it hasn't gotten to that point yet. So all this bullshit about there being a peace plan, there is no such thing in place. There is a desire for peace, certainly on the part of Europe and Ukraine, but Ukraine will not stop fighting because they're fighting for their existence. So again, I just wanted to put this video out there to briefly touch on these points because of what happened last Friday in the Oval Office and the embarrassing spectacle that Trump and Vance made of themselves and of our country in the Oval Office, that sacred ground, and how they just brutalized, essentially, they verbally brutalized and humiliated Zelensky, a man who is doing everything he can to save his country and his people. They are fierce fighters, the Ukrainians. If you read a little history, there's an amazing book that I have by Timothy Snyder. He's a professor at Yale, expert on Ukraine. He wrote a book called Bloodlands. Check it out if you get a chance. I had to put it down. I read about 1/3 of it, and I had to put it down because it was just so. It started to depress me because of all the brutalization, the unbridled terror that was inflicted upon the Ukrainians by Stalin and by Hitler. Stalin brutalized those people during the 1930s, and Hitler did it in the late 30s and then during the early parts of World War II. They have known terror, genocide. Millions of people died. It's ventured that as many Ukrainians died, if not more, than Jews who died in the Holocaust. And that's hard to imagine, but millions. So they are fighting for their existence, and they do not want to go back into Russian influence. They want their independence. They want their autonomy. They want democracy. And we admire them for that. And we should insist that this administration honor its obligations in helping them to defend themselves. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching if you're on YouTube. And let us know what you think of this little video, and give us your comments. If you like it, give us a thumbs up. Thanks very much.